Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Round the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. We got a show today. It's going to be a good show, but unfortunately I have a lot of disastrous news to give you. So that's what we'll be doing today. We're going to talk about the FCC decision that happened earlier, if you weren't familiar. An update on Omarosa. We got Paul Ryan. We got the Trump budget. We've got corporate Democrats talking about Doug Jones. That's fun. Then we have a fun story on President Trump and what he does during his intelligence briefings. You're going to love that story. But again, we're going to start out with complete disaster on the FCC. I kind of gave it away there. But look, not good, right? Not good. All right, so we'll get into that in a minute. I do want to let everybody know I'm aware that I've had some sound issues. I had them yesterday. Apparently, I had a lot of gain in my microphone settings. So please, everybody, let me know if it sounds okay, or if I'm still like overgained or things like that. Just let me know how it sounds so I can make any adjustments if I have to on the air. I don't want to have to do that, but I do want to have the sound be decent. So, all right. That said, I want to thank everybody for watching, for tuning in. If you haven't already, please share this stream with everybody you know. And if you could, give us a like. I definitely appreciate that. Thanks to the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. Now that with the news that we're going to be sharing today, Patreon, even more important for small independent creators such as us, such as this show, and there are a lot of other shows too that probably need your help as well. So all that. Again, super important, and I'm super thankful to everybody who helps contribute to keep the show on the air. So like I said, it's the future is a little uncertain, so we're not sure what's going to happen. So anyway, might as well just get into that story and go forward with this, so we can get it out of the way. Okay. So we have some disheartening news from the FCC. They voted today on the net neutrality rules. I'm going to go to an article here in the New York Times who writes that the agency has voted to scrap net neutrality rules that prohibited broadband providers from blocking websites or charging for higher quality service or certain content. It also would give them the ability to block certain content from their competitors. So that's a major problem. Now, the federal government also said that they will no longer regulate high-speed internet delivery if it were utility, like phone services. So again, that's a bit disastrous. Ajit Pai, chairman of the commission, said the rollback of the rules would, in his words, help consumers eventually, because broadband service providers like AT&T and Comcast and Verizon, whom Pai was a lobbyist for, could offer people a wider variety of service options. Interesting. Now, Title II has nothing to do with what service options these providers would be able to provide. All it says is that, hey, you must treat all content on the internet equally. You cannot block, you cannot throttle, you can't slow down, you can't prevent access to certain websites. You have to treat everything equally, right? Even if you're, because here's how it works. You have a couple of very large telecommunications companies that are basically your ISPs. Those are the gatekeepers to the internet. Those are the people that you pay to go and access the internet through. So now these companies obviously they're not just ISPs, they're also television companies. and they're competing with each other for eyeballs, right? So these companies owning different smaller subsidiaries and things like that, or having stakes in them, they look at the potential to throttle content as a way to draw service away from their competitors into themselves. And that's the whole purpose. Yeah, we slow down their websites so they come to ours, and then we make money. Well, we don't want the internet to be able to do that. The internet thrived because of the fact that we didn't allow ISPs to slow people down. Now, why didn't we need net neutrality protections back in before 2015? Well, it was sort of an unspoken rule on the internet. But then these ISPs, which continue to grow larger and larger and have more power and more influence, began to think, hey, wait a minute, I can make more money if I can slow down, or if I can block websites, or if I can charge more for so-called fast lanes, which is actually known as paid prioritization, which is what Comcast is now looking to do. They're like, paid prioritization actually sounds kind of good. So in the weeks leading up to net neutrality, of course, Comcast and these other companies are like, no, we promise we won't block or throttle or do anything like that. Or paid prioritization. Oh, did we say that? Later on, they dropped that promise because, of course, they didn't need the promise. They're like, we plan on doing this anyway. Yes, we're gonna do paid prioritization. We're gonna offer fast lanes for people, although it's really not gonna be all that much faster because we haven't actually improved our infrastructure really at all because we don't need to. All we're gonna do is we're just gonna slow everybody else down, open up a normal lane, and this is what they could do without any sort of oversight or regulation, which is what the whole point of eliminating these Title II protections or Title II regulations, regulating them as common carriers. That's what allowed them to do. So they can make more money off the same speed. Again, we already pay for access. Now they have the ability to go and pay or to go and charge us for more just for that same amount of access. And then here come the ability for them to be able to basically segment the internet into packages. Oh, do you want to visit Netflix? Do you want to visit YouTube? Okay, let's give you a special video streaming service package for an extra $19.95 a month. Oh, you like going to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter? All right, we'll give you a social media package, extra $10 a month. That's what the internet could look like. It already actually looks like that in Portugal, which doesn't have net neutrality protections. So this is what the internet could look like. Now that Ajit Pai and the other commissioners, this was actually a 3-2 vote along party lines. So the two Democratic commissioners were like, no, we're going to keep net neutrality protections because we actually do believe in a free and open internet. But the other Republicans, including Ajit Pai, were like, no, we don't believe in that. We believe that Verizon has a right to a higher profit margin. Now, Pai said, quote, and this is before he cast the deciding vote, we are helping consumers and promoting competition. Broadband providers will have more incentive to build networks, especially to underserved areas. Really? They had no problem. It's not like they didn't have an incentive to do so before. And how does removing these protections, which just regulated them and told them that you can't do all these things, how's that going to spur that incentive? It's ridiculous. There's nothing in those Title II protections that actually prevented them from building more networks or making their networks better. So that's not true. That is a lie. In fact, according to Wired, many broadband providers actually did increase their investments, while those that cut back on spending told shareholders that the net neutrality rules didn't have any impact on their plans. So they had nothing to do with some of these people or some of these companies that were not spending, not investing. But that's their entire argument. Oh, the net neutrality rules, they're hurting investment, they're hurting companies. No, the companies are doing absolutely fine. The only reason you want to deregulate them is because these companies stand to make an enormous profit by being able to charge more for what we already have. And what we have sucks compared to the rest of the world. I mean, we pay more for internet here than anywhere in the developed world for speeds that are hardly competitive. South Korea, for example, has very cheap internet, but it's actually about 5 times faster than we get here in America under a much, much more expensive plan. So if you think it's bad now, it's probably going to get worse. Now, they also claim, oh, it's going to increase competition. It's a flat-out lie. It's actually going to stifle competition and stifle innovation. So that's what we're looking at right here. Look, what they've done is that they've empowered the telecommunications companies massively. They'll be allowed to crush their competition and by slowing down their competitors' websites. And of course, independent media, look, I'm genuinely concerned about what this means for, independent media on YouTube, especially, or independent media on websites that, are unable to be able to pay the rates they're going to bring in. Now, look, it's not as if it's going to change tomorrow, right? And we're going to wake up and all this stuff is going to happen. It's going to be phased in, I think, over a long series of time until we can, wake up and we realize that the internet is entirely different. That I believe is what's going to happen. They're going to phase it in. They're going to do it quietly. And what we're going to do here is we're going to keep it. We're going to pay attention, and it will be giving you some ideas on what's going on, what we're going to do to actually try to fight against this. But look, they've got much, much more power than they did before, and now they actually intend on using it. Gone are the promises of pre-2015 for net neutrality. Here it comes. Again, terrible ruling, but not at all unexpected. See, these Republicans, the Republican commissioners, Pi included, they serve their corporate donors. They serve the people that sign their paychecks, and we all know that. That's why any Republican administration was likely planning on doing this anyway. If it wouldn't have been the Trump administration, it would have been someone else. It would have been the Jeb Bush administration, which always makes me laugh, of how unlikely. It would have definitely been the Ted Cruz administration, because Ted Cruz, again, doesn't understand how the internet works. It's like, oh, net neutrality. Oh, government regulation, automatically bad. But wait, the government has a role in regulating things so that it protects consumers from gigantic corporations. Don't care. If it's a government regulation, it must be bad. If it's a liberal idea, then it must be bad. Ridiculous, right? And look, most people, they look at Pi's arguments, they disagree. I believe it was 83%, according to a recent poll, that disagreed with Ajit Pi's plan to dismantle net neutrality. It's incredibly unpopular with not just Democrats, but Republicans. 3/4 of Republicans, according to the same poll, said, no, don't touch net neutrality. We're fine with the government regulating internet as far as it means to, as far as it applies to making sure that every website is treated equally. Because it's not just left-wing websites, it's also right-wing websites that are also going to be impacted by this. So where's people on the alt-right? I mean, where are those guys? Where are the free speech advocates saying, hey, wait a minute here. We got a little bit of a problem here. We're going to have to fight back against the Trump administration for putting in this obvious corporate puppet into the FCC slot. Now, during the hearing, and again, Ajit Pai is not only is his plan incredibly unpopular, the guy is also incredibly unpopular, not just for doing this, but the way that he actually treated net neutrality proponents. He openly mocked them. He even openly mocked Mignon Clyburn. Hopefully I said her name right. That's the Democratic commissioner who in her statement said that she was, quote, outraged because the FCC pulls its own teeth, advocating responsibility to protect the nation's broadband consumers. So she made this very, very long, impassioned speech. I wish I had the video for you guys. And it's a long speech about how net neutrality is important, And he just jokes. He laughs it off. He's like, oh, so we'll mark you down as a no, right? Jackass. He's a condescending asshole. Now, but look, again, this is what Republicans are like. And just like the EPA under President Trump and other Republican administrations, although Trump, I think, has taken it further than other administrations, as well as the Department of Education, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, on and on. All these agencies now are headed by people who no longer are looking out for the American citizen. Now they're just looking out for the corporation, the multinational corporation, and their interests. There's no agency left in the federal government that's actually looking out for the people now. The Republicans have finally gotten their way, and they've finally gotten their wish to dismantle everything that could possibly benefit regular people. Now we are the corporate states of America. So what can we do? Well, okay. So there's a couple of options. We can fight in the courts. In fact, I believe the New York Attorney General is already looking to sue or filing a lawsuit against the FCC over this ruling. So we can fight it in the courts, right? Success definitely not guaranteed. So that's going to be a tough one. Another suggestion is filing complaints against companies who actually start putting in these paid prioritization or blocking or start blocking and throttling and things like that. That is a possible avenue. I don't know. Again, I don't know how effective that is. And then there's the other one. Ron Placone actually mentioned in the show yesterday. We can actually start demanding our politicians, city councils, local politicians, set up municipal broadband companies. So, hey, man, you want competition? All right, we got some competition for you. Let's get some fiber optic in our neighborhood, in our local city, in our town, maybe in our state. Washington State is already saying that we're going to protect net neutrality rules. And so that's one way states are fighting back. But again, on the local level, if you're looking at putting in municipal broadband, well, then you don't need those gatekeepers because you've got your own access. So that's the big companies will likely try to buy off politicians to prevent that from happening. I know. That's why this is like, we got to do this right now. We should have been doing this the entire time. We got complacent after 2015. We thought that, hey, man, net neutrality, done deal, right? I thought that. I was obviously massively wrong, and I didn't look towards the future. And, look, again, we didn't have the foresight, but we should be fighting for municipal broadband in our states and cities, and it's never too late to start fighting. So that's something that I definitely recommend. So this is in the end, of course. We can always fight, right? We can't just throw up our hands and go, what are you going to do? Now they've got all the power. Sad day for us. No, we're going to keep fighting. Yes, this is a big, big loss. But you know what? That's just going to make us fight even harder for the principles of net neutrality. It ain't dead as long as it's in here and in here. So we're going to keep fighting for it. We're going to keep trying to hold these companies accountable. And eventually, I believe we will win this fight and restore the internet to what it's supposed to be. Free and fair for everyone. Okay. Also, fuck Adjit Pie. Fucking dick. All right. I had to get that off my chest on that one. And the other guy that looks like a potato. Fuck that guy too. Dick. Fuck with my internet. All right. All right. Let's move on. Paul Ryan. More news today. This might be good news. I don't know. Is this the end of Speaker Paul Ryan? It's a very interesting report coming out from Politico talking about Paul Ryan and his possibility that he might be leaving in 2018 during the midterms or before the midterms. Interesting. According to Politico, interviews with 36 of Paul Ryan's colleagues, aides, lobbyists, and allies said that, quote, not a single person believed Paul Ryan will stay in Congress past 2018. Quote, speculation about Ryan's future has swirled for months. Last month, several Republicans told The Hill that they thought Ryan could be serving his last term of Speaker, particularly if Republicans succeed in passing tax reform. So they call it tax reform. It's actually a giant tax cut. But hey, man, that's something that Paul Ryan has been working on for decades, ever since he was a bro back in college, sitting next to the beer keg saying, you know what I wish I could do? Pass gigantic tax cuts for ultra wealthy people and screw over people on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. I can't wait to do that. To which his colleagues replied, dude, you are one fucked up man. Kidding, of course. GOP lawmaker close to Paul Ryan told The Hill in November, quote, there's certainly a school of thought that says, leave on a high note. And passage of tax reform would be a high note for a guy that spent 18 years in Congress working on it. Because again, destroying the budget, leading to massive cuts in Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security is considered a high note among Republicans. At least among Paul Ryan, whose bill would do exactly that. Who would end up cutting, having an immediate cut in Medicare of about 25%. And of course, the massive budget shortfall, about $1 trillion, that we will not be able to cover. And this, of course, includes the possible economic growth that Republicans claim in the tax bill. Well, it'd have to be paid for by something, right? And Republicans immediately would go to cutting so-called entitlements. You know why they call it an entitlement? Because you paid into it. You're entitled to it. It is your money that they're like, you know what? No, we're going to actually take your money away from you and give it to the rich. That's what that tax bill is about. And that's what Paul Ryan has been fighting for the last 18 years. Again, what a dick. I despise Paul Ryan. Now, congressional Republicans are working to get tax legislation to President Trump's desk by Christmas. They have been a longtime goal of Ryan's, and some GOP lawmakers told The Hill earlier this year that the Speaker could choose to go out on top if Republicans are unable to enact their legislation by Christmas. Again, this is their Christmas present to their donors. We're going to give you a big fat Christmas gift of tax cuts for the rich. Well, that's who we work for. We don't work for you. We work for the ultra wealthy who are going to get a massive payout. People who grew up or inherit wealth, they're going to get an enormous cut when they get rid of the estate tax. The corporations, they're going to get their rates driven down to about 21% in the final version of this bill. 21%. You're going from 35% to 21%. That is a huge, huge cut. And that is, of course, going to starve the government of revenue, which is going to lead to cuts in things like food stamps and other social programs, student loan programs, etc. So look out, man. The Republicans have come for your wallet. And now, if this passes, which it is likely to do, Paul Ryan could possibly retire safe in the knowledge that he has served his donors correctly. So, and that he has served them well. One GOP lawmaker said, quote, maybe Paul slides out of the job if it passes too. That may actually be more likely than leaving on failure. Actually, look, I would prefer that Paul Ryan stay so I can see him get his ass kicked by Randy Bryce. A man that has the Twitter handle of Iron Stash, kind of a badass. Just saying. And look, maybe he's leaving because of that. Maybe he's leaving because of Trump. There could be other reasons that he ain't interested in actually staying around. Again, he doesn't necessarily get along with President Trump. And so, I don't know. Maybe he sees the writing on the wall come 2018. Hey, look, we passed all of this horrendously unpopular stuff. So, and the Democrats, they're coming for us. And this time they've got progressives that are running in a lot of competitive districts. So, I don't know. Again, you've got to have the right kind of Democrat to run in these districts. And I believe that is progressives because they'll be running on incredibly popular progressive policy. Policy like Medicare for all, which, look, Medicare itself polls at about 77%. And it polls popular with Republicans. Medicare for all also polls at a majority, at least above 60%. So you've got these popular policies that Paul Ryan and the rest of the Republicans are looking to gut, and you've got progressives that are running to expand these policies. Which do you think is going to have a better chance? Especially in 2018, when the Republican Party, and especially Trump, are the most unpopular they've ever been. Again, writing on the wall, right? Or there could be other reasons. Politico notes that Paul Ryan, after Mitt Romney's failed 2012 presidential bid, which is funny thinking back to Mitt Romney, I think is the last sane Republican we have seen tried to run for office. This is a guy who said that 47% of Americans are moochers, and that disqualified him from the race. Simple times. Kind of missed them. Back when politicians were at least somewhat sane, and for the most part, tried to hide their contempt for regular people. Now they don't care. They openly they're openly hostile to pretty much everybody. They no longer hide that contempt for the working person. Now, the article says that the Wisconsin Republican had told his wife that he was considering stepping down from the House after losing 2012. It was then Speaker Boehner who talked him out of retiring, offering him a waiver that would allow him to continue to serve as the chairman of the Budget Committee. So look, who knows, right? Now, the official report from Ryan says that he denies that he's leaving. Quote, "I ain't going anywhere." Ryan's office also expanded on the report by saying, quote, "This is pure speculation." Obviously, we know that. And as the speaker himself said today, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And you know what? Again, I have to say that I don't want him to go. I don't want him to resign. I want him to get crushed at the ballot box by Randy Bryce. That's what I want to see. So, yeah, go ahead and stay there, Paul Ryan. Either way, your days are numbered, man. And for that, I've got to say good riddance and hopefully bye, Felicia. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here for a minute. We'll get ready for the next story. So stay right here. We've got more Around the Nation coming for you in just a minute. Hey everybody, back and around the nation here. Jeff Waldorf, TYT Nation. More stories for you guys. But first, again, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you haven't already, please hit the share button. Also, if you like what you see, please give us a like. All right. More stories, as I said. We're going to have some fun with Omarosa. Bit of an update on that story because more stuff came out. So this should be interesting. So there's some new details on the departure of Omarosa Manigault. Newman, Omarosa Manigault Newman, who had left the White House yesterday. So that was a big report, right? So the details are that came out yesterday is that Omarosa was leaving in order to pursue other opportunities, and that she'd be officially resigning on January 20th. Now, what makes this interesting, of course, is the new details about how she has left. There is the official account, and then there's what might have actually happened. So this is fun. Now, the official account is, and this is from the White House, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, said, Omarosa Manigault Newman resigned yesterday to pursue other opportunities. Her departure will not be effective until January 2018. We wish her the best in her future endeavors and are grateful for her service. Fairly standard response. What service? I don't know. Nobody could really tell anybody what she was actually doing there. Nobody knows. I mean, originally, as I had reported yesterday, her entire role was just her bringing articles, normally very tabloidy articles, to President Trump and pissing him off for the rest of the day and making him actually go on crazy tweet storms. Not that her stopping that has actually stopped him from going on crazy tweet storms, but that's what she did. Oh, hey, Trump, look at this article about Morning Joe. God damn it, Morning Joe. Mika, bleeding badly from a facelift. Okay, hey, that's what she did there until, of course, John Kelly stepped in. John Kelly is an equally odious person for what he believes, but he actually did try to bring some order to the White House. So part of that order was saying, Omarosa, you need to cut it out. You no longer can go into the White House without an appointment. Now, that is actually going to be really important to the other account of what might have actually happened to Omarosa and why she suddenly left. Now, again, official account, right? According to an unnamed White House official talking to the Wall Street Journal, Manigault Newman was reportedly physically dragged and escorted off the campus. So they just took her and they dragged her up. Okay, you got to get out of here. We got to get you out. Gone. What'd she do? Well, I'll get to that. White House reporter April Ryan said that things were worse than that. Manigault, she says, apparently demanded to see Trump and was, quote, very vulgar to Kelly when he refused. Ryan says Manigault tried to access the White House residence anyway. Now, that apparently is a no-no because of Secret Service. Secret Service allegedly got involved after that and physically removed her. I don't know if that account is true, but it would kind of fit into what we know about Omarosa to begin with. I mean, remember, she's a reality show guest, not a host. She got famous because she was on The Apprentice twice. Right? The first time is when she got famous. And look, what's funny is that she got fired. But she was the only reason that I guess people liked her is because she was the heel, and she was very, I guess, confrontational. Right? Again, that would make sense. Now, she's a reality show guest and was put into a position that she was obviously not prepared for, right? And again, that's why she didn't do anything, and she got paid $179,000 a year to do nothing, to literally do nothing but plan her wedding. Insanity, right? Of course, the further insanity is the fact that the same reality show that she was a guest on, the president happened to be the host. So that is the strange new reality that we have found ourselves in. And again, when you really think about it, it makes you want to poke your eyes out with a pair of forks. Just saying. Now, Amanda Newman, of course, denies this report. She tells ABC News, no, that's not what happened. No, I left of my own accord. I'm going to read you her account of this, and then I'm going to ask you guys if that makes any damn sense in the world. She said, I resigned, and I didn't do that in a residence as reported. Chief of Staff John Kelly and I sat down in the Situation Room. We had a very candid conversation. I wanted to make the 1-year mark and then get back to my life. So wait a minute. So you want me and the rest of us to believe that you, with a job where you've got paid $179,000 a year, doing nothing in the White House, working for the most powerful man in America, and yet you want us to believe that you wanted, with all that you just wanted to quit after a year. Hey man, year's up. Best job I ever had. I love being here in the White House. Ooh, oh, look at that. Golly gee, it's a year. I better resign. Does that make any fucking sense in the world? No. You seriously expect us to believe that you were just so tired of living it up in the White House that you just wanted to get back to your life? What even is your life? And how is it better than where you were at in the White House? It makes no sense, okay? Who are you? Again, this is Omarosa. This is somebody who got famous for being confrontational, okay? That she was, again, the heel, and anybody who's followed wrestling knows what that actually means, right? She loves drama, she creates drama, and gets more famous from that drama. That actually reminds me of somebody else that I know. Oh, right, the President of the United States. Ugh. And look, that's what Trump loves about her, but that's what everybody else in the White House actually hates about her. She's one of the most, if not the most, disliked person inside the Trump administration. Look, it's no secret that her and John Kelly obviously did not get along. So, look, I'm more apt to believe the account of her getting dragged out, basically kicking and screaming, because it seems more in character with who she is. I mean, again, I believe that she would make a scene and have to get dragged out. That's my own read of the situation. You guys decide for yourself. Okay. The world is crazy. This is insane. We're living in an upside down, insane world. And speaking of insane, let's go to the corporate Democrats. After the shockingly narrow win against an accused child molester and altogether garbage human being, Roy Moore, corporate Democrats have predictably seized upon this victory as proof that centrism is ascendant. The first example I have is soon-to-be ex-senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, who is being primaried by Paula Jean Swearengin. You should probably check her out. Now, on CNN, he decided to say this about the Doug Jones race. Let's watch.
But what's your reaction to the Doug Jones win in Alabama last night, the Democrats?
Well, I just think it speaks volumes for what we call the radical middle, those of us still in the moderate middle, centrist Democrats. And for Doug to coming from Alabama is going to be a big plus, be able to work in that middle. But I just told Doug to be an Alabama Democrat. Don't have to be a Washington Democrat. Whatever you do, make sure Alabama's first and foremost on your mind. If you can go home and explain it, you can go home and vote for it. If you can go home and explain it and tell them what it's about, no matter whether it's a Democrat idea or Richard Shelby, your co-worker, has a good idea. If it's a Republican idea that works good for Alabama, do it.
Hey, if it's a Republican idea, if it works good for Alabama, that's great. Translation. If it works good for your donors in Alabama, absolutely do it. That's exactly what I'm doing in West Virginia. If it works great for my donors, I absolutely do it. Because I work for the coal companies. In the case of Manchin, I don't know who Doug Jones works for, but I have a feeling that we're going to eventually find out. So, but the overall point of this, of what Joe Manchin is saying, is like, hey man, look, we barely beat a pedophile. Centrism is back, baby. Here we come. Here come the centrists. Wow. Not only are they celebrating a 1.5% win over somebody who's a horrific piece of garbage, but now they're touting this as some sort of validation of basically corporatism. Amazing. Amazing. Now, in doing so, they're actually ignoring the real reasons that Doug Jones actually won. Now, look, it's not because Doug Jones ran on great policy. He didn't run on policy at all. He ran on, hey, Roy Moore is a disgusting human being. Don't vote for him. Vote for your conscience. Don't vote for a pedophile. So now the other reason that Doug Jones actually won is because of the massive get out the vote, thanks to the African American community. African American voters waited sometimes hours with various forms of ID in order to beat GOP voter suppression tactics. And so they were absolutely instrumental in Doug Jones's win. Why? Because, well, again, it's not because Doug Jones had great policies for the African American community. It's because Roy Moore was a horrendous person and a racist, an alleged rapist as well, or attempted rapist. So this is something that the African American community could not abide. And so a lot of their work, this grassroots activism, this get out the vote, is attributable to them, not to the DNC, not to people like Joe Manchin, and certainly not to centrism. Okay? Now, I'm not done. Here's I now have a quote here from the king of centrist Twitter, the one and only Peter Dow. Hashtag free Peter Douche. He also weighed in, quote, let Doug Jones's incredible victory be a message to those attacking the Democratic Party from the fringe left. Join the party, respect its diverse base, and stop trying to sabotage it. We can defeat the radical right. Join us. He then added, we will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. You will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile. Okay, he didn't actually say that, but you get the message. These guys are like the Borg, right? Except that they're these guys are actually the fringe. Peter Dow, talking about fringe left, he actually is the fringe. Most of the Democratic Party, again, agrees with progressive ideas, and Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America. So I don't know what fringe he's talking about. He is the fringe. Centrism is the fringe in America now. So, but anyway, now look, I love, he's like, you need to respect the diverse base. Again, progressives have a coalition of everybody. Progressives are the base. So you're not the one who's respecting the diverse base. You represent the hate percent, the 8% of people who despise Bernie Sanders and progressive ideas inside the Democratic Party. You do not represent the party. You are not an arbiter of the party. What you do, what you are, and what you represent is the elite. And you protect them. That's what you do. Again, Peter Dow does not represent the Democratic Party. He represents the Democratic elite, not the grassroots. Again, the grassroots, those are the people that led Doug Jones to victory. So, anyway. Now, I can't believe he said incredible victory. Look, I understand. It is kind of a big deal when you win in some places like Alabama, right? Which is a Republican stronghold. It's a very, very deep red state. And I'm not going to minimize that. But Jones, again, he ran a decent campaign, even though he wasn't all that exciting. I get all that, right? But he won by 1.5% over an alleged pedophile. If Roy Moore hadn't been half as bad, he would not have won Doug Jones. If they had ran Luther Strange, who was your establishment Republican, when you pit establishment versus establishment, well then the Republican, the establishment Republican, usually ends up winning in these areas. So in this case, Doug Jones was lucky. He's not the rule, he's the exception to the rule. He won in a place because his opponent was so odious and such a garbage human being. Now, that 1.5%, I'm sorry, that is not an incredible victory. And look, again, Jones, I don't have anything against him. He's just a standard Democratic politician, right? And don't get me wrong, he did prosecute the KKK, which is awesome. I love that. But that's about the only thing that gets me excited about Doug Jones. He's not for Medicare for all on policy positions. He's not with things that are popular even among conservatives, right? And there are progressive positions that are incredibly popular among conservatives. For example, again, Medicare for all. That's the basic one. Because even Republicans are like, yeah, no, it makes sense to have healthcare for everybody. Oh, and we can get it cheaper than the insurance companies? Because right now, I'm getting ripped off. Okay. So we've got a solution to that. It's called Medicare for all. You like Medicare? Yes, we do. 70% of Americans, or 77% of Americans, love Medicare. And so the logical extension is just to allow everybody to have Medicare. And that's an idea that I think a lot of even conservatives in deep red Alabama can get along, can get around. So, and they can get behind, I should say. And look, Alabama is suffering crippling poverty. And the ACA, which was a step in the right direction, actually did a lot to help people in Alabama. It reduced the uninsured rate by a ton. It was a massive success there. So if you can make the case about these progressive policies, then I think they'll actually do really well and have somebody who's willing to stand up and promote those progressive policies. That guy is not Doug Jones. He's likely to not be super progressive on many issues. And look, that's fine. That's who he is, right? It's not really about him. It's about centrist Democrats trying to paint this as some sort of gigantic win for corporate corporate Democrats, right? It's disingenuous, and again, ignores the efforts by the grassroots. This is about the DNC. This is about Peter Dow. This is about Joe Manchin. It's about, head of the DNC, Tom Perez. I'm getting emails from him. Oh my God, our massive victory in Alabama. What did you do, Tom Perez? You didn't do anything. So it's about them jumping on this win as if it proves their message is right, that we must run to the center if we're going to win. Every place is different. Not everybody will respond greatly to progressive ideas. I understand that. I'm under no illusion that you could just immediately run a Bernie-crat and win everywhere. No, you actually have to have a strong campaign with a strong message. But I do believe that progressive priorities are popular among the country, especially if you focus on things that are going to make people's lives better. For example, making healthcare cheaper, more affordable, right? And you can do that with Medicare for all. Or making sure that people end up getting more money, raising wages, things like that. Or just dealing with certain problems. I think there was one progressive candidate that focused mainly on fixing potholes. I don't know how he did it, but that made him super popular in a Republican district. And he's a progressive. So it's possible that progressives can win everywhere. And in fact, what Manchin says, what Dow says, ignores all the other progressive wins that they've racked up, that we've racked up. They conveniently ignore them. Like, for example, the Democratic Socialists of America increasing their seat count by 75%. Now, that's 15 seats overall. That might not seem like much, but it's actually a pretty big deal since these are Democratic Socialists. You also have open socialists that have won seats in Georgia, Virginia, and Illinois. And the Virginia race was a huge, huge win for Democratic socialists all over America. So, look, they ignore that because that doesn't fit with their "we must run to the center" message. And see, that's what's wrong with the corporate ring of the Democratic Party. Not only do they ignore these progressive wins, but they also focus too much on national races. And when they actually do pay attention to these races, they learn the absolute wrong lesson from them. Okay. Moving on. Not sure which one to do. Yeah. Go with the Trump story. Have a little fun there. So we know President Trump is fairly thin-skinned, right? He doesn't like any information that counters his worldview. Well, apparently aides to President Trump have learned that about him and are especially careful not to upset him during his daily briefings. Again, have you ever heard of any other president having to be coddled like this? Talk about snowflake. Now, according to intelligence officials speaking to the Washington Post, and this includes over 50 of them, right? So there's a lot of sources that have worked with him and that have put together these briefings. And they say that anything that has to do with Russia upsets Trump, even if it's included just in the written assessment. And actually, they don't bring it up anymore when they talk to him, even though they talk about it or they put it in those written assessments. A former senior intelligence official familiar with the matter said intelligence about Russia that could upset Trump is just not included in the written assessment, but is in, you know what, I messed that up. Let's start that again. I've butchered this story beyond belief, and I'm going to do this all over again. Sorry, guys. Live shows and all that. Aides to President Trump have to be careful as to not upset the president during his daily briefings. Now, according to intelligence officials speaking to the Washington Post on condition of anonymity, this is over 50 of these officials speaking to the Post, they say that President Trump has to be kept from certain information as to not infuriate him. Now, this information has to do with Russia. Now, they say that in their daily briefings, anything that has to do with Russia or the Russia investigation or any attempts to meddle in the election are not included orally, but are sometimes just written or just included in the written assessment. The order in which information is presented could also be altered as to try to not upset Trump. One of these former senior U.S. intelligence officials said, quote, "If you talk about Russia, meddling, interference, that takes the PDB off the rails." So anytime you mention this, gone. Immediately he flies into a rage. You know, it's funny. I thought that the president didn't like it when people were being politically correct. Yet here's the intelligence agencies having to choose to avoid certain topics, mentioning certain topics to the president because he can't handle it, because he flies off the handle. So they've got to be politically correct just to make sure that he doesn't get all angry. Isn't that amazing? Can't bring up anything to do with Russia. Even though it's in my opinion, it's not a nothing burger. Especially since we know several top officials got arrested over this. And there's an investigation into you, your son, and a lot of other officials that we don't know of. So, kind of a big deal. But apparently you bring it up, and it infuriates him. There's more. A spokesman for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence said the briefings are basically written by senior-level career officials. They always provide objective intelligence. So it's not like they're saying, oh, well, this briefing says that you're guilty of collusion. No, they're just saying, here's what the Russians are doing. Here's what our intelligence tells you, and you can make of it what you want. Well, he doesn't want to make anything of it because, again, he's friends with Vladimir Putin and may owe him money. Again, that's my speculation, and I'm being absolutely clear with that. But I believe that the president owes the Russians money because they're the only people that will ever give him money or loan him money. And it would make sense, in my opinion, that if you owe somebody money and can't actually pay it back, get into a position of power or at least run for a position of power so you can try to give them some favors. Hey, if I can't pay you back in cash, at least I can do something for you. Maybe like lift the sanctions that Russia is currently not in favor of. Again, who would be in favor of having sanctions against their country? Just saying. Now, throughout his time in office, Trump has repeatedly dismissed the investigation into Russian interference and has called it basically a witch hunt and says, collusion, no collusion. We're not doing collusion. You know who's doing collusion? You are. Hillary Clinton's doing collusion. Hillary Clinton's not the president. I'm just saying she has no power unless you count the 8% of people on Twitter that are still in love with her, like people like Peter Dow. Yeah, I guess she's got some power with those people, but as far as the American people are concerned, they don't like Clinton, they don't trust Clinton, and I think they'd never vote for Clinton. So, anyway, again, she's not in a position of power. Nobody cares. She can go back in the woods. Anyway, hold on, I kind of lost my train of thought here. But anyway, here's an example, right, of the president's aides basically having to deal with his temper by working around it. And it's either his temper or his lack of focus and organization, which I just ironically proved that I also do not have a lack of focus or attention. But look, the president doesn't read his briefings. That's why they first tried to shrink them down to about a half a page. But don't worry, it had pictures and killer graphics. When that didn't work, they started putting his name into the briefings throughout to maybe help him keep attention. Ooh, hey, look. Oh, hey, there's my name. I'm suddenly interested now. Child. And look, when he was leaving for one of his trips, I believe it was an Asia trip, they ended up putting his briefings into tweet length segments. He's got to be able to read 140 characters. This was, of course, before Twitter doubled their character length. 280 now might be a little long for him. But in this case, he doesn't want to pay any attention, and he says, sad witch hunt. That's what this is all about. Now, again, to be fair, I don't believe that Russian interference, while I believe it did happen, was not the sole cause of Trump taking the White House. No, that's ridiculous. Again, I can put most of the blame on the campaign that Hillary Clinton ran and the fact that she was one of the most disliked, distrusted candidates ever. So, obviously, more disliked and more distrusted than Trump. And he's already at record levels of dislike. His approval rating somewhere around 32%. He's an absolute disaster. But he did run against the establishment. Hillary Clinton was the establishment. And so that's what happens. Again, he ran anti-establishment. He ran as a populist. And he ended up beating the establishment candidate at a time where for some reason the Democrats tried to run as the establishment during an anti-establishment wave. Not very smart, but they thought, no, all we have to do is just keep calling him a mean person. And that'll work. And now we're all paying for it. But look, what Trump said about the being anti-establishment is obviously snake oil. And all you have to do is just look at his cabinet. Look at the people he's appointed to different places. His Supreme Court appointment, is the most, one of the most, I should say the most corporate-friendly judge I've ever seen. This is the guy who ruled against the guy who left his truck during a snowstorm. If he would have stayed there, he would have froze to death. No, no, no. You stay with the truck, you freeze. We cannot risk our profits. Your life is not important as important to us as our money. He ruled on that side, and this is who Donald Trump and the Republicans picked. That's their Supreme Court, man. That's their Supreme Court justice. So, no, he's proven that he's incredibly establishment and pro-corporate. The only thing is that, strangely enough, the establishment despises him because he ran against them. Even though, he's basically allowing the establishment to get everything they want. Gigantic tax cuts for the rich. Done. Angling us forward towards more war. Done. On and on, man. Appointing people to the FCC that would eliminate net neutrality protections. Done. Appointing somebody to the Department of Education that is going to push charter schools and hurt, public education. Done. Appointing somebody to the the EPA to eliminate regulations and to exacerbate climate change. Done. All at the expense of us in order to get more profits for the fossil fuel industry. So that's the kind of person Trump is. That's the kind of administration he's run, one that is deeply establishment. You only need to look at his picks to understand that and what he's been doing. But look, back to Trump personally, he didn't want to hear anything that contradicts his idea that, no, I completely crushed Hillary because I was the better candidate, because I was awesome. No, it was Hillary Clinton's election to lose. You didn't win, she lost, and he can't handle any of that criticism. Just like he can't handle any criticism about his crowds. His crowds were actually smaller than Barack Obama's. What are you going to do about it? We have photographic evidence. He's a loser. And again, won't listen to anything that contradicts his worldview. Even if I don't agree with the idea that Russia stole the election, even if you bring it up to President Trump, he gets pissed because he's insecure and knows that he didn't win by himself. That he didn't win because he's awesome. That he won because everybody else was fucking terrible. That's who Trump is. What a very, very sad snowflake. Okay. That's all I got for you guys today. We're going to, I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you. Please make sure to give us a like and a share if you haven't already. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You guys are awesome, of course. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we'll be here tomorrow. We'll have another great show, assuming our cable company doesn't throttle us down to nothing. Hopefully not. So that's it. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you all tomorrow.